You are tuned into my weekly talk radio TV show called Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get balanced and get happy with Dr. Marissa. And this show is about hope and happiness. So there's no gossip, no scandal. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. So I have shows and topics.
Sunday, Monday, happy days. Tuesday, Wednesday, happy days. Thursday, Friday, happy days.
Monday, Tuesday,
Happy days.
Wednesday, Thursday,
Happy days.
Friday, whatever.
Happy days.
What a day. Na, 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 na.
I love you.
I love you too.
Best known as the mom from Happy Days, and she is a delightful 89-year young Marion Ross to my studio. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Dr. Marissa, this is such a treat for me.
Oh.
My goodness, you're a wonderment.
Which is exactly the kind of guest that I like. Those who have gone through life, good and bad, and then taken those experiences to alchemize them into the person they are now and doing good on the planet. I'd like you to welcome Corey Feldman.
If you're grateful for it and you say right away, thank you, God. Oh, my God, it's so beautiful. I'm so blessed. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Then guess what? More good things will come to you.
Does this sound familiar at all? She's back again to mark my Cancer Awareness and Prevention Month show. Please welcome Fran Drescher. Hi, Fran.
On and supporting cancer schmance. I really appreciate it.
So what would you say are some of the biggest myths, Fran, that people have about cancer?
Well, I would say that they think that there's a cure for it.
Okay.
Instead of a cause for it.
This is the first call-in show when I get to be Dr. Marissa, the kinder, gentler Dr. Laura. And people call in to get their life tires balanced and their critical thinking or their BS, their belief systems, smog checked. And today I am delighted to have Malie calling in from Birmingham, Alabama.
We could go 90 days and end up having terrible sex. And then you say, well, the relationship's not all about sex. Well, if I'm not getting great sex from you, then I'm going to get it from somebody else. Right?
That moose just got put on the table. And I see Josh and Jim.
I have to agree
You're
with Clyde.
both nodding. Ramon's sort of half nodding because his wife's listening. But
I understood what was going to happen if Muhammad Ali's youngest daughter, made public that I was going to become a boxer. So I wanted to make sure this was the path that I wanted to go down.
You are absolutely fabulous, beautiful inside and out. And I'm giving you Dr. Marissa's Beneficial Presence on the Planet Award today.
Thank you.
Just sit right back and you'll hear a tale of a fateful trip that started from this tropic point.
When I go, I'm gone.
Are you lonely?
No.
Nah, I knew that was going to be
But
the answer.
I surround myself with people. I mean, I'm always the one cooking for things. I'm always the one that decorates first and come to my house. All the orphans that have no place.
I'm going to have no place to go, so I can come over.
Come on over.
And life is so amazing if we can see it.
Jump off that exhausting hamster wheel and into balanced living with Dr. Marissa.
Promise you joy in the mystery.
Dr. Marissa, also known as the Asian Oprah. Her mission, to be a beneficial presence on the planet. Her purpose, to be your personal advocate to live, laugh, love, learn. Her life motto, don't die wondering. Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome. You are tuned into Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News, CNBC News, and NBC Sports Radio station KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, Audible, Amazon Music, iTunes, TuneIn, Podchaser, Giovanni, Tiki Live, Rumble, and more. Why so many places? Because I want the maximum splatter zone for more hope and happiness, which is what the show's about. So there's no gossip, no scandal, and no K-words, no Kanye talk at all. Instead, I want you to focus on your own reality show and how you can be happy 88% of the time. And so I have topics and guests to that end. And today is no exception. I am delighted to welcome to my studio someone who I've known for a very long time. I think like a quarter century now, but I am ageless, so don't ask. Owl, but we decided at lunch yesterday that we both do not resemble or look like our ages, which is a good thing. And we're just going to keep the number actually under the radar because, as I say, it's better to be thought a fool than to open your mouth and confirm it. It's better to be thought young than to open your mouth and disconfirm it. But I'm so delighted to have he was my dissertation chair. He single-handedly propelled me through my doctorate program. I'll give you a more formal introduction to him, but I wanted just to bring him on for my gratitude sandwich breakfast. Please welcome to my studio, Dr. Don Mankin. Hold on. You get some applause here. And where is it? There it is. Welcome to my studio, Don Mankin. You don't even go by Dr. Don Mankin anymore, huh? Or Professor Mankin. You're just the adventure geezer.
I go by anything you want to call me.
Right. Just don't call me late for dinner, right?
Exactly. Right.
Yeah. Well, I'm just so delighted to have you. And you are a consultant, psychologist, and award-winning travel writer who specializes in adventure travel for seniors and baby boomers looking for immersive, authentic, off-the-beaten-track experiences. He's traveled extensively throughout the world, visiting over 80 countries and all 7 continents. The Wall Street Journal called his latest book, Riding the Hulahula to the Arctic Ocean, a guide to 50 extraordinary adventures for the seasoned traveler, from the National Geographic Books, one of the best travel books to cross our deck this year. A wonderful and inspiring read. And for that, you should get another thing of applause. That's no small feat to get kind words like that from the Wall Street Journal.
You know, it sort of floored me. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, that is so awesome. And before
that was one of the best reviews. Well, the book came out in 2008, so it's been out for a while. And I have 5 books, and I've gotten good reviews for pretty much all of them, but that was the best.
That's so awesome.
Yeah.
So that would be your first good gratitude. Those of you who've just tuned in, I start every show with my breakfast with my guest, having a bite of my gratitude sandwich, starting the day in the most positive way. So, Dawn, I'm going to do a tag team. So you just did your first gratitude for that really nice review. I'm going to say I'm grateful for hot water, for my showers after my workout in the morning. You go now, you're at gratitude number 3, and we're just going to go back and forth until we hit 8. So go ahead.
The most important most important is gratitude for my wife, her sense of humor, her tolerance, her wit. We've been traveling together all over the world for the last 20 years. It's been wonderful.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Hashtag relationship goals. and I'm grateful that even seasoned bachelors, when I met my professor, can succumb to love and romance. And it's funny because we were both single when I started school. Well, I still am now, but I mean, this man has been to my wedding. He's been to my divorce. He's been with me with both kids being born and growing up, and being shocked yesterday when I told them they both graduated college. But when I first met you, if I had told you you'd be happily married for this long with someone who you traveled with, I don't think you would have seen that, because at the time we were both committed single people, I think.
Well, actually, at the time I was a widower. My first wife passed away about a year before, actually only a few months before we met. So,
right. Yeah. So
it was pretty strange starting a new job, having just lost my wife. It was a pretty weird time.
Yeah. And I'm grateful that I got to go through a program that really was fascinating to me. I didn't go the traditional clinical route. Those of you know, it's organizational psychology, which is
right.
It was new at that time. And I'm grateful that I found someone who believed in me. And that's something that I have been really good at. I'm getting a little emotional. I didn't think this would happen. Well, anyways, I'm grateful for you and all the effort that you put in to help me through that program.
Well, thank you. And, I'm grateful for you. You were a fun graduate student. Not all of my graduate students were fun, let me tell you. You were probably up there among the top of the best and the most interesting, the most fun. So
thank you.
It was a great way to kick off my my new job, basically, as the dean of the graduate program that you're enrolled in. So it really made those a couple of years that we worked together, actually more than that, a lot of fun.
Yeah,
we had some good times.
Yes, we did. We did. And I'm grateful. Oh, I got a heart from somebody. And if you've tuned in and you're actually seeing us, that means you're not driving and listening on the AM FM. Please do chat and say hi and put what you're grateful for. And or if you have any questions later for Don Mankin and traveling, then please do that. I am grateful for your help with my ability to write. He will never let me forget that on his vacation in Florida, he's on the beach in the middle of the night and day going through my dissertation to try to fix it so that I could get through in less than 4 years and do a dissertation in less than 9 months, which was quite the feat. And he made me into a better writer, which is pretty interesting because I had my 9th grade teacher tell me I was a horrible writer. I had my dissertation chair tell me that I needed a lot of work. And who would have known that my book hit 8 bestseller lists and became number 1 on Amazon and number 4 in Denver Post. So
actually, it wasn't. I actually wasn't on the beach.
Oh, I thought you were on the beach.
Can you hear me, Marissa?
Yeah, I can hear you. You weren't on the beach? Where were you?
You're sort of froze, so I can't.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me?
So it wasn't. It really wasn't on the beach. It was actually in a motel room on the Keys. Not a big key, the Keys in Florida. I was on a snorkeling vacation. It was my birthday, actually, and I was up in my my room, and it was a typical tropical sort of motel, all windows open, ceiling fans, all that. So the windows were open, and I was my room was overlooking the tiki bar downstairs. So I could hear the sounds from the tiki bar calling to me. You hear people talking, you hear tropical music, probably Jimmy Buffett. You could hear the tinkle of the glasses. And all I wanted to do was to go down there and have one of those drinks with an umbrella in it. But I was committed. I mean, we have work to do. And so we spent, I think it was about 3 hours, and we went through your dissertation almost line by line, if I remember.
Yeah.
But by the end of it, I felt really good that that what you produced was really, really good. I don't remember it in great detail, but I do remember a little bit of it. And it was a quality piece of work, and I have absolutely no regrets of giving up 3 hours of my tiki time.
It was called The Nature and Effects of User Involvement on Systems Acceptance.
Yay!
And yay! And Don and my dad were the only two people who I know for sure read every single word in that dissertation. And for those of you who didn't know, where my doctorate came from, now you know. I went to Alliance International University, which is what it's called now, and I did a 4-year PhD in organizational psychology. And they said that I couldn't do it in 4 years. Number one, they said that I couldn't do it remote. And what Don did, this is my last gratitude, is he sent me to Philadelphia, where he had contacts, and his friend / cousin, Dan Heitzer, shout out to fabulous partner. He was a partner at Coopers and Lybrand, I think, or was it Deloitte? He was at Coopers and Lybrand. And so he set me up to do remote work to do my internship there, which was a tremendous learning experience, where I was a assistant program manager for a systems implementation at Scott Paper Company. And here's something that I don't know if I told you. Dan took me in his office one day because my role model, do you remember Ellen Barris?
Sure.
She was the program manager at the time, and she was tough. And so I wanted to be just like Ellen. And then Ellen got moved to another project. So I stepped in, and I was, large and in charge, or I thought I was. And Dan called me into his office one day and said, you know what your reputation is. They, they call you the ice queen or something like that. Some not very nice. And I'm like, I don't care, and people need to step up and do everything that they say they're going to do. And I'm just here, helping them do that and realize their potential. And Dan looks at me and goes, did they ask you to do that? And it was one of the best lessons in leadership around dictatorship, and all of that is really not, necessary, and the kinder, gentler leading way. And it was such a tremendous lesson early on in my career that I credit Dan for. So, and I credit you to make all that happen. It was not an easy time because we were a new program, and nobody wanted to let me, not attend class, and there wasn't such a thing as Zoom. So they were going to make me fly back every other week on my dime. Do you remember that? I'm not going to say whose name, but there are a couple professors' names who I still have in my mind, not in a very positive way, because they did everything possible. But anyways, that's memory.
I think you were getting a much better education on that project than you would have gotten in one of their classes. So, for me, there was no question about it. This was a much, much more important educational experience for you. So
yeah, thanks. Yeah, it really was.
Yeah.
And Ken LaFend, who's in heaven with my father now, I still am in contact with his wife, Jane. And it was a beautiful time. I lived with my grandma Blum. Do you remember her? My Russian Jewish grandma who unofficially adopted my mom. and stayed with her for 9 months. And I had to move out because I gained like 19 pounds because she would feed me morning, noon, and night. And, but you know, she helped me bribe people on the project to get stuff done because of the baked goods. Do you remember that? Like everybody wanted her arugula and all of that stuff. Right. But and then I moved out to Buttonwood, which is by where the Rocky Stairs are. So I have really fond memories of, and one last story that I'm grateful for that I don't know if you remember. Remember Joe's Peking Duck House? We used to go there after, you know, to celebrate. And we were celebrating either my birthday or something. So I brought all of the consultants from, you know, all those IT things. And we went to Joe's Peking Duck House. And you know, Don's a great foodie like me. And that fish, that whole fried fish that they have the head and the tail, and it's covered in that red sauce. Do you know what I'm talking about? Those giant whole fish. So the waiter comes with this giant fish and he hands it, and the guy beside me, I don't even remember his name. I don't know if it was Jim Bermonti or somebody else from that group. They looked at the fish and they looked at me and they said, "Do we bury this?" Like, what are we supposed to do with this? It was honestly one of the funniest moments of my life. And yeah, so anyways, I'm so grateful for that and all of those memories that we have. And thank you again. So there's the gratitudes. That's the top of the bun. The bottom of the bun you guys do when you go to bed tonight, instead of thinking about all the things that went wrong or who done you wrong or who said something that was not nice. And then you can't sleep. Surprise, surprise. I want you to think about the 8 specific things that you appreciate about yourself. And one of the things that I remember very distinctly when I was in Philadelphia and when I was a student with Don Mankin, I did not appreciate myself. I was constantly beating myself up. I was constantly remembering all the bad things that had been said to me as a child. I was always looking for approval constantly. You know, did you like this? Do you like me? Do you approve of me? And it was a horrible way to live. And I'm so grateful that I've learned how to appreciate myself, that I'm not hot shiitake, but I'm not a piece of shiitake. I'm just really good shiitake. So 88% of the time I'm fabulous. So that's the skill that I want us all to hone on this show. So I'll start. I appreciate that I have a great sense of humor, even though my husband said I was not funny. The best thing about divorce is that I've owned my funny. So I appreciate that about myself. Don, what do you appreciate about yourself?
Well, I don't know where to begin. I think sense of humor is probably the most important part. You know, sense of humor and resilience. I mean, I think those are maybe the 2 most important human qualities. You know, sense of humor to get you through difficult times, and to also, accelerate the fun that you can have, and resilience, because, you know, God knows we all go through some real bad stuff at some point in our life, and those who have resilience get through it, and they learn from it, and they move on, and they develop skills and capabilities that enable them to deal with the future stuff that comes flying at them. So, yeah, I think those are the 2 most important qualities.
Yep, absolutely. I appreciate that. I am, I cut myself some slack now. When things go wrong, I don't beat myself up as bad. So I appreciate that about myself. Another one that you appreciate? What do you appreciate about yourself, Don? You have 2 more.
Oh, okay.
We have to do 8 between the 2 of us. 8 is a lucky number in Chinese.
Okay. What I also appreciate my commitment to exploration, trying new things, going new places, and mostly in the context of my my current career, which is travel writing, and it's travel writing with adventure. So it's not. I don't go on cruises. I don't go to resorts. I go on small boats, in Indonesia, kayaking in northern Canada. So things like that. So so I appreciate my commitment to trying new things, putting myself out there, taking some risks, some reasonable risk, because I'm older now, so I do have to moderate that risk, and always trying to learn new things.
Great. And there is 8 things that we appreciate about ourselves. If you are not doing this right now, wait till you go to bed tonight. That's fine. But make sure that the last thing you think about before you go to bed is something good about yourself. And that way, the chances you're going to wake up feeling good are much higher. So there it is, the breakfast. My guest Don Mankin having a bite of my gratitude sandwich, and we finished that exercise, and I'm so grateful that I have someone to do it with this morning. And now we're going to go and specifically find out. So it's interesting. Both of us were talking. He's like, well, you really didn't use your PhD in what you went to school for. And I looked at him and I'm like, that's the pot calling the kettle black, because you're not exactly professoring when you're traveling around winning great accolades for your writing about travel. So I think both of us are great examples of one of my biggest BS belief systems about life, which is you don't have to just do one thing in life. That is one of the most detrimental belief systems I think we grow up with as children. Like, we've got to go to school for one thing and you got to do it, and you end up hating what you're doing, but you're stuck there because you're making money at it. And so to try to parlay anything into anything is kind of looked down on. But one of the good things about COVID, #COVID silver lining, is that people are recognizing that life is short and things can change in a California minute, and they can do different things. So tell me, like, how that even happened. So did you ever think when you were a kid that you were going to be doing what you're doing?
Not really. I mean, when I was growing up, when I was pretty young, I remember reading science fiction, and also a set of travel books, sort of classic travel books by the name of the author escapes me. If I think of it later, I'll let you know. And that really, made me very curious about other places and other worlds. And my original career goal then was to become an astronaut, become an aerospace engineer, and to become an astronaut. Then, as I got a little bit older, I realized that I didn't have the right stuff. For one thing, I was too big, too heavy. I had asthma. And in retrospect, those were not the only failings that I had. I mean, I just would not have made it as an astronaut. So my original career was electrical engineer, aerospace engineer. And then I became interested in psychology, and I became what's called an engineering psychologist, where so it's in the space program. You're dealing with the design of space capsules and instrument panels and controls, so that the user can operate them more effectively. And that without going into great detail, that led into other areas of psychology, particularly organizational psychology, and that's where we met. That's in my organizational psychology phase, which was a fairly long phase of my career. And then I was working on a book. This was 2000, from 2001 to 2004 or 2005, I think it was. I was working on a book with a co-author, Susan Cohen. We had worked on another book, and also on a whole bunch of articles on teams and collaboration. And this was great work. I really love this work, and I love working with Susan. She was really a great collaborator. And so we came out with this book. Can you see this? There we go. And so I'm having dinner with a friend of mine who is another former student. So there are two former students of mine that really have achieved great things. Marissa is one, and this other is Ken Dykewald, who was a student of mine when I was teaching at Lehigh University back in the very first years of my career. And Ken has gone on to become a very famous writer and speaker on aging of the baby boom generation. So he gives presentations for lots of money, $50,000 a shot. You know, he's very famous. He's very successful. So I was having dinner with Ken, and the idea was I was going to give him a copy of my book, my latest book. So I hand him the book. You know, he takes a look at it, and he looks up to me, and he says, "Don, do you mind if I give you some career advice?" And I figured, well, this guy's making a lot of money. He's very successful. So, of course, career advice, you know, from him, sure. And he says to me, "Stop writing this crap." Now, he actually wasn't that kind. He used other language, which I'm not allowed to use. But, you know, you get the idea. And I go, oh, and, you know, I was shocked. I mean, this was, you know, I was very proud of this book, you know. And then he starts to explain. He says, you know, you take great trips. You tell great stories about your trip. You're a natural storyteller. You get very excited. You get more excited talking about your travel than you do about this stuff. And he said, you should be writing about your trips, and you should be speaking to audiences of baby boomers who will pay you a lot of money, you know, to hear about your adventures. And it was one of those proverbial, you know, there is this, you know, the metaphor, the cartoon, you know, the light bulb goes off in your head. Well, that's exactly what happened. That's the way I perceived it. And it was like instant. And I said, yes, you're absolutely right. And so we went back to his house. I was staying at his house, and we went into his office, and we started working on an outline for a book about how adventure had transformed my life. He hooked me up with his agent, who then referred me to another agent. That agent, then, you know, the story goes on, but that agent said that I needed to find a co-author who had more practical experience in the travel industry. And so I found someone who's the president of the Adventure Travel Trade Association. And a couple of years later, in 2008, this was the book that came out. And that was the one that was reviewed so positively by the by National Geographic. So that started my career. So at that point, I was a full-fledged travel writer, and it took a while. And this is a great, you know, this is a great entry into that career. But then you have to find magazines and newspapers that will publish your work, and that, you know, takes a lot of work. So over the years, I've been able to develop a following, and I've written, I don't know, 50, 60 stories about trips to exotic destinations, destinations that frequently push you out of your comfort zone and are transformational. So one of the topics that I like to write about is transformational travel, how travel can change who you are, how you think of yourself, can transform your relations with other people, can change the way you view other people, can even change the way you view the world. So that's what I've been doing for the last, I don't know, at this point, it's 15 years or more. Yeah.
Wow. So what would you say is the first one that you remember going, okay, this one is way more than just the 2-week vacation travel where you just go lay on a beach and go to the tiki bar, where you actually experience transformation yourself? Okay.
Yeah, actually, this is pretty clear. So I was about 33 years old. I had this image, you know. I mean, I'm an urban boy. I mean, I grew up in Philly, and for me, adventure was taking the subway into town to go hear jazz, to go hear John Coltrane. I mean, that's quite an adventure. But I didn't do any outdoor stuff. I had none of that experience. And then when I became a professor, you know, this was back in the late 60s, you know, early 70s, and the Earth movement, you know, Earth Day, and this sort of spurred an interest in me, and actually reconnected me with my initial fantasies about traveling to exotic places, traveling to faraway worlds. And I started to wanting to get more involved in the outdoors, you know, outdoor adventure, backpacking particularly. So in the summer I think it was 1975. I was traveling. I was moving from Pennsylvania to California for a new job, and I stopped in New Mexico to visit with a friend of mine, and then I took a tour through the American Southwest, northern Arizona, southern Utah, New Mexico, and I did the first solo backpacking trip that I've ever done. Now, I didn't even have that much experience doing backpacking with other people. But when I did, it was always in Pennsylvania or Virginia, that area where I grew up. In the American Southwest, there are so many more ways you can die in the wilderness than there are in Pennsylvania. The worst that will happen in Pennsylvania is to get wet. You might sprain an ankle. But in northern Arizona, you can fall off a cliff. You can get bit by a snake. And probably most important, you could die of dehydration. That's so. That was my first. So my first solo backpacking trip was in Zion National Park, and I remember loading up my backpack with water. I mean, I must have had 20 pounds of water in there because, this is what you learn. If you're a Philly boy and you're now in the Southwest, you got to have water. So, I was freaked out about not having enough water. So I must have carried, I don't know, 10 gallons of water in my backpack. And I hike up a very steep canyon wall to the top and get to the top. And, it was a lot of effort, especially with all the weight I was carrying. And of course, once I got up there, I just drank like crazy. And that was my first solo backpacking trip. And then I followed that up just about a week later because now I was in a different park. I was in Bryce National Park, and I'm doing a multi-day extended backpacking trip. It's the Under the Rim Trail. So if those of you who are familiar with Bryce, you probably know that trail. And so this was my second solo backpacking trip, and I'm on the trail and I'm doing well. I say, you know what? I got this. I'm feeling really good. I think I'm, over the hump of, how to be an outdoors guy. And I come around and I'm daydreaming and singing to myself and having a great time. And I come around a bend in the trail and there's a rattlesnake in the middle of the trail, pissed off. He heard me coming, he saw me and he's rattling and he's hissing. And I go, whoa, unfortunately, I saw him. Well, he made sure that I saw him with enough distance that I don't think I was within striking range. But here it was, my first encounter with the deadly Southwest.
Yeah.
And, I stood there. I threw rocks at him to try and get him off the trail. He wouldn't move. And I finally just sort of went off the trail, a little bit of a rise, to go around him. But it was steep. And if I slid down that rise, I would have slid right down.
Right into him. Uh-huh.
So that was it. I mean, that was my first. So that started a tradition for a number of years where every year I would go off on a solo backpacking trip. I mean, I got married, but once a year I'd go off, usually to the Southwest, Zion, Bryce, one of those areas. Then I started going backpacking in the California mountains, the mountains above Tahoe, the Sierras. So that's really, that transformed me. I mean, it transformed how I thought about myself, because up until that point, I had a self-image that I knew was a facade. The way I presented myself, but it was a facade. I knew it was phony. And by pursuing those activities, the facade became the reality. So at a certain point, I was not only pretending to be a rugged outdoorsman, I actually was.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, that was maybe one of the most profound transformations, in my life.
That is. Well, I'm allergic to dirt, so that is never going to happen. But it is a very interesting, being with yourself and being okay with yourself. And we, I think many of us have this, if we could just be how we want to look, You know, I used to say, if I could approve of myself 20% of how people put me on, you know, whatever pedestal it is, then I'd be okay. So people would compliment me and I'd say, thank you very much. And then inside my head would say, you're really not that way. And when they find out who you really are, they're not going to like you as much. So that is profound. And if you're wondering who I'm talking to right now, his name's Don Mankin, formerly known as my professor and dissertation chair. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to hear more of his travels as the adventure geezer through 7 continents. And you are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on KCAA, the station that leaves no listener behind.
To the world was exploring the world. What if the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, little girl, turns into how many streets of life you want to explore? What if the purpose of life is not to die with the most toys to leave our squabbling relatives? What if the purpose of life was to do things that we enjoy most of the time? Have relationships that we enjoy most of the time, and use our unique talents, gifts, and abilities to fully express in the dash between birth and death? What if, as a direct result of this horrible pandemic, we could rise out of the ashes with a new PPP, post-pandemic possibilities? The sooner you turn, it's impossible, to I'm possible, the what ifs become possible too. Because you are loving, lovable, and loved, wrapped in a warm blanket of worthiness. But it may start with getting out of bed and making it. What if starts with
Take back your life with Dr. Marissa Pay.
And welcome back. You are tuned in to Take My Advice. I'm not using it. Get Balanced with Dr. Marissa, the morning show here on NBC News Radio, KCAA, AM 1050, FM 102.3, FM 106.5, and streaming everywhere. iHeartRadio, Spotify, Stitcher, and my YouTube channel, where you free subscribe, get an alert every weekday morning to tune into this show about hope and happiness. And you can also get my past 751 shows, but who's counting, over the last 358 consecutive weeks. Yes, whoever said that good news would not sell is lying, because that's what this show's about. And you can also get my red carpet playlist with interviews with the beloved Lieutenant Uhura, Nichelle Nichols, who just went to the other side. I got to do 2 interviews with her, and what a beloved, incredibly funny, great sense of humor into her 89 years. And I'm so lucky that I got to actually meet her and speak with her on the carpet, as well as my backstage interview with the Temptations that happened about a month ago, and Jimmy Fallon, who, when he heard I was the Asian Oprah, said, well, then I'm the Puerto Rican Jerry Lewis. So all of those wonderful interviews on the carpet and on the stage and platform are available for you for free subscribe. And today, thank you, Coach Andre, who says he loves this interview. This is a personal interview where he hasn't said anything bad yet, but Don Mankin is a beloved professor. This is the professor and Dr. Marissa instead of Professor and Marianne. He is a role model for me. He was my teacher. He was my support. I call him one of the trilogy. It was him, Kellen Gersick, and Bill Snow, the three professors who believed in me and supported me through a very difficult time in my life, as well as a difficult program. It was not easy to get that PhD. So welcome back, Don. And he is also known as a prolific writer, not just in teams, but more important, in all of his travel adventures. So you just told me about the dirt ones that were transformative. Tell me one that you would recommend to my audience if they're looking at travel, when it's safe to travel. What was the most surprising trip that you took that you would recommend to everyone?
I'm not sure it's the most surprising, but I would say it's one of the most impactful, and that's Antarctica. And so it doesn't involve dirt. It involves ice, but not dirt. And you're on a ship. And I also recommend, if you're doing it, not doing it on one of the big cruise lines, which are now going to Antarctica, but on a smaller ship, because the big cruise lines the big ships can't get into the bays and the coves that are really the most interesting and attractive. But I've been to Antarctica 3 times. My first time, I actually flew in to the interior and camped in a tent for 8 days in the interior. And that's really quite a story, which is, by the way, that story is in my book.
Yes.
And then most recently, I did the cruise to Antarctica a few years ago. I think it was originally, I don't know, about 10 years ago. And then I did it more recently, almost right before COVID. I did a whale watching trip to Antarctica, which was stunning. And it's I'm not like you, like I'm not a spiritual person like you are. I'm much more, down there. Well, I don't know, down to earth, whatever it is. However you want to earth.
I'm up to earth.
Yeah, when I go to Antarctica, I do. I get in touch with my spiritual side, but as much as there is, because it just gives you a sense of the infinite. It gives you a sense of a universe beyond the confines of your bony, skull, and I think it's that everybody that I know who has been there has said the same thing. It's mind blowing. It's absolutely mind blowing. So, and you don't have to get dirty. And you really don't have to even get cold. Actually, the biggest problem I had in Antarctica is overdressing and sweating, and you really don't want to sweat in Antarctica. And you can do it in comfort. You have a bed to sleep in at night. There's usually good food, on all those cruise lines. But you get to go out, you get on the Zodiacs, you go cruising around, in and around icebergs. You go ashore, you do some walks on shore. For the lucky people who are willing to pay a little bit more money, you can get out in the kayak, which is really pretty stunning. So that's what I would recommend.
Great. All of this, I pulled up your website, which has all kinds of good stuff on it, so people can find you there.
Soon to be upgraded. It's been around for a while. I think I need to do some changes to it, but it does give you a good idea.
Yeah.
And you'll note that picture is also a little bit dated. I have a lot more white hair than I did. Actually, that picture is very meaningful to me. I wasn't even aware that my picture was being taken. I was on a 14-day kayak around Baffin Island. This was back in 2005, 2006, I think it was. And that's a tough trip. 14 days camping in a kayak in an area that, if the weather's bad, it can be miserable. We fortunately had some pretty good weather. And this was taken on maybe the next to the last day of the trip, where I was feeling like really good because, I weathered it. I did well. And I'm standing on the beach looking out at the setting sun, and my kayak partner, my paddle partner, is standing close by, and she took the picture of me, and I wasn't even aware of it. And if you look closely, you can see the sun, the setting sun, reflected in my sunglasses.
Oh, in your sunglasses! Wow.
And I have this look. It's a beatific look. I remember that moment of just feeling incredible peace, an incredible sense of accomplishment. It was like one of the high points of my life.
Oh, that is awesome. I love it. I love it. So, okay. So what's interesting is that is the only continent I have not been on. And I have been, people ask me, is there any place? I said, really, I'm grateful that I feel like I've gone everywhere that I've ever wanted to go, except for I want to see the Aurora Borealis. And apparently you can see that on a cruise to Iceland. Now,
Yeah.
Can you see that on a cruise to Antarctica? Oh, okay.
No, it's the northern sky. In fact, when you go to Antarctica, you have to go in the Antarctic summer or late spring. So you essentially have 24 hours of daylight. So you never see the night sky in Antarctica. The only people who get to go to Antarctica in the wintertime are research scientists and other and some crazy people. But it's harsh. That's another place where if you're not careful, you can die. So.
Oh yeah.
No, you got to go north. Baffin Island, northern Canada. There are cruises, adventure cruises that you can take through the Northwest Passage, or actually Norway. Svalbard is a good place. You see polar bears and the northern lights.
That's the one I want. I want polar bears, and that's exactly, wow. The fact that you just said that, I got chills because I've been putting that out there. So you're going to send me that link. It's so funny. I didn't think that, I didn't make the connection that this would be something valuable for now. So any advice that you have for people who are sort of, coming out of this thing called the pandemic? They want to travel. They're not quite sure if they should, anything like that.
Well, actually, this is general advice that I would give. The whole idea of adventure is to be a little bit, at least a little bit out of your comfort zone. Because that's where you learn. That's where you experience things that are unexpected. That's where you experience things that will blow your mind. That's where you learn about yourself. And if you stay within your comfort zone, you can have fun. And there's nothing wrong with fun. I love fun, and I always try to have fun wherever I go to. But if you really want an impactful, potentially transformative experience, you have to put yourself out there a bit and take the risk of being uncomfortable and taking the risk of having to deal with conditions and situations that really push your limits. So in general, that's the advice that I give. And I think, COVID is sort of the same thing. Now I haven't, but you have to be careful too. Now, you have to modulate this, so if you're too far out of your comfort zone, you'll be freaked out, and you'll fall apart, and you won't have fun, and you may not even survive. So, you got to find that balance, that peak, right? The balance, right? Now, as far as COVID goes, so I haven't traveled internationally in 3 years, but I'm going to this fall. But I'm going to Europe, which I feel is pretty safe, But then, so I have a whole series of trips laid out after that. So each one is pushing the envelope a little bit more. I'm going to India after that. Then I'm going to Morocco after that, and I'm hoping to go to Iceland. So I think that we're at a point now where I think you got to start taking some risk. Calculated risk. Like I'm going to go see my doctor in a couple of weeks. I'm going to ask him for a prescription to Paxlovid, so I have it with me when I'm traveling. I'm taking masks along. I'm going to wear a mask in the airport, when you're boarding the plane, and until the plane takes off, until the ventilation system really kicks in, which is when it's in the air. Then I'll take the mask off, and then when we're starting to come in for landing, I'll put it back on again. So I think that's what you need to do. You need to think about risk. You need to be willing to take some risk, but you also need to make sure that you're not taking unreasonable risk. So it's finding that that balance.
Yeah. Sounds great. Any last thing you want to say before we sign off? It could be something that people don't know about me that you remember taking that risk. I can't believe I just said that. But anything else that you want to share? Thank you. This has been really wonderful. One of my listeners, Coach Andre, who was a guest on the show as well, who's a award-winning barbecue chef, by the way. And
love barbecue.
Anything else? Yes, I know. That's why I said it. Anything else you want to leave with my listeners?
Well, yeah, I'm going to relate a memory, an incident involving the both of us, where I think we both learned something. And this is an incident that's really stuck in my mind. So I think it was when you were on the project at Scott, and I was still a consultant on the project, and I gave you some feedback for improvement. And it really, it made you cry, the feedback. And I thought, well, so there were two things that I learned. One is that, and I think you learned, that learning to take feedback without taking it personal and without getting, too emotionally involved. But what I also learned too was I got to be real careful about how I give feedback. Now, this is something that keeps on coming up for me, is I have to remember that I'm a big guy. I weigh 225 pounds, I used to play football and all that. And I have a big personality. And I sometimes forget that the way that I come across to people is a little bit intimidating. And I'm willing to bet, I'm not sure that I was aware of it at that time, but I'm willing to bet that that's the way it came across to you was, My wife reminds me of this all the time. I get feedback on that all the time. And I even had an incident on a trip, traveling with somebody, a colleague who set the trip up in Ethiopia, where we got into a political discussion, and I made her cry at the airport in Ethiopia, and I felt so terrible. And I realized that what it was, even though that the points that I was making were the correct points, the way that I made it, I got into my argumentative mode. I'm the expert, leaning forward, talking loudly, and it just was, overwhelming.
Well, thank you. Thank you for that. For sure. and you just never know what you're going to hear here on the show, but I appreciate and I accept, and I don't remember exactly that, but the fact that I know that I also, to cut you some slack, I hate criticism because I grew up with so much criticism that it just kills me. So I know I have to get the, not take it personally too. But thank you for that, Uncle Don. And we're out of time. As usual, thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow's more, actually it's my co-host, Sam Works, who is my sound engineer as well. We'll be talking about everything about relationships and dating. And then Friday, Cynthia Coffey, my regular co-host on Fridays. So just keep it here. It's all about balance. Don, if you do this with me, peace in, peace out, world peace through, inner peace. Now go have the best day ever. Thanks so much, Don.